The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
We are 70 episodes old. Thank you so much for listening, and welcome to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. I'm Dave, your host and author, and before we jump into everything, make sure to follow us on socials. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Florida Beer Blog, Facebook at FL Beer Blog, or you can find us on FPN Insiders. That is our closed members-only Facebook group for the Florida Podcast Network. You can also find us online at FloridaPodcastNetwork.com, FloridaBeerPodcast.com, and of course, FloridaBeerBlog.com, where you will be able to see an article that I wrote a couple weeks ago with all of the beers that I was able to try during this, the second part of our interview at the Tank Brewing with Carlos Padron from the Tank and Vice President Jose Luis Plasencia of Plasencia Cigars. We're going to jump into the second part of our episode, where we'll talk about some of the amazing things that Plasencia is doing, including their amazing organic line and some of the continuing groundbreaking that they've been doing with the luxury tobacco industry. Enjoy.
And yeah, the other, and I want to add too, the other interesting part about the tobacco industry, we don't market ever to children, right? This isn't you could see any ad out there. This is all an adult product, right? So I think there's a lot of differentiating factors. They try to group us into the rest of the stuff, but we're really, I mean, obviously we're biased in our opinions, but I think we're really cognizant of that, and the industry protects that.
And that's actually something that I kind of wanted to talk about because, obviously being here in the U.S. for the past decade or so, it's difficult to watch news or watch some sort of a show without some sort of anti-tobacco legislation coming on the news, some sort of anti-tobacco, which does seem to be centered on cigarettes, obviously, to see the commercials come on. Has that been a difficult blow, not just to Plasencia, but to the craft cigar industry as a whole?
I would say for the people that are actually like the people that are into cigars and know everything that it requires to a cigar to be actually built, all the process that it requires is not something that are going to take them away because they actually know. But potential people that can enter into the industry, yes, of course, if they see a lot of commercials that tobacco is bad for you and tobacco, like you relate tobacco, cigars, cigarettes, whatever, like that could harm in getting more people into the industry. But it is our job to actually show what is behind of making a cigar and all the people that is involved there, where all these cigars are coming from, who are they making it, the time that it takes to make an actual cigar, so.
And the education is out there with cigars. I don't think I've ever walked into a cigar shop and the person working behind the counter didn't tell you about what you're getting, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
There is a certain level that cigar shops have that, your 7-Eleven's not going to have.
Exactly.
But from a business side, Dave, it's actually extremely difficult because as we've talked about, it's not a large business. Your imports are maybe 350, 360 million cigars. And so every time there's some legislation that comes around, just like the FDA user fee that we're fighting right now, we don't have, well, the user fee is already happening, but different FDA legislations with warning labels that you need to put, what kind of testing you may need to do for cigars to prove. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for us to fight because we don't have that kind of lobbying or money to hire all the lobbyists, because it's really family-owned businesses by and large, right? And so there are, a series of organizations that have formed during this process, led, by the Cigar Rights of America that has done an excellent job. The CEA has done an excellent job trying to represent everybody's interest. But, we don't have the money of the big cigarette companies to be able to fight these laws. So we have to pick and choose our battles and then educate these legislators, whether it's on the House side or on the Senate side. And then you spend all this time educating one, potential representative, and then he's gone 2 years later, right? And then here starts the process again. And somebody else always is trying to use tobacco as a way, right? So, like, I think he's Senator Representative Urban from Illinois right now introducing some new legislation that would kind of quadruple the tax paid on cigars, right, and other tobacco products. So it's actually very difficult. It's a constant battle that that sometimes makes us lose some of in addition to the gains or the money that we could generate to continue focusing on creating new blends, educating the consumer. We have to spend that money on fighting legislation, which is very difficult for the industry.
And yet, with all of that, the cigar industry seems to be continuing to grow and is still very healthy. Do you know, have you seen how new smokers get into the industry? How are they sort of attracted to and, I guess, get their feet wet? Like you said, Carlos, there is no advertising, especially towards children. It is something that is very similar to the craft beer industry. You come to it. Do you know how a lot of people come to cigars?
To be honest, remember that the main businesses of our family has been growing tobacco and producing cigars to other people. Since we opened our distribution facilities 5-6 years ago, is the moment that we are closer to the final consumer, right? So before, we wouldn't able to tell this, but as we are into this business, I love when I go to before COVID, of course, when I go with the shops to the different events that we give cigars away and stuff, how the father take their children and they're teaching their children to start smoking cigars. It's a lifestyle. It's something that you can create a bond with your father, and that's something amazing because what we do, we're making these people's lives better, and an experience before. And so, yeah, to answer that question is something that we're learning.
And if you think about, I think the consumer, similar to the craft beer consumer, loves a story, loves a family story, right? They love to hear about Jose Luis and, his story, how he grew up in the farms, how he's here now, and everybody. And with cigars, historically, it doesn't matter kind of what age you are. When a baby is born, right? When there's a graduation, right? So those traditions continue, I think. And so, and so with that is you just have to have that opportunity to be able to talk, and again, it's an educational process. And so when a father, like Jose Luis says, educates a child.
And the more educated people is, the more it's gonna come towards this industry, because it's hard not to fall in love with. For instance, a personal experience, like I was telling before, I just started a master's degree 2 years ago. I'm about to graduate.
Congratulations, obviously.
Thank you. Most of my classmates would have smoked 1 or 2 cigars in their lives, but they didn't have a good experience, to be honest, because nobody taught them what a cigar is and how to start smoking a cigar. It's when all of us started drinking, you would not take a shot of tequila right away. You would you need to start.
That's a very good point.
Eventually and stuff, and then I have invited them to different cigar lounges. Hey, listen, you need to smoke this one. It's creamy. It's this and that. This cigar.
But it's also when you walk into a cigar shop, you have hundreds of choices to make.
Exactly.
You have how do you choose? How do you choose long, short, Churchills, torpedoes?
But that's the work of the people that are behind the desk. That you need to tell them, hey, listen, I'm a new smoker. What should I smoke? And they need to do their proper job. They are not going to give you a cigar that is very strong because it's going to make you dizzy and you're not going to smoke a cigar ever in your life.
Or it helps if you have one of your friends that's been smoking cigars that can lead you a little bit better than a little more personal.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's probably, Dave, like you in the beer world, right, that a lot more. The same thing happens, right? Somebody walks into our place, right?
And it was funny. We actually just had that experience with your staff. They were able to sort of run down the menu and understand certain things that were going on. And so it sounds like that's the best place to go into a good tobacco store, cigar store as well.
Because you have to. Because if somebody comes here and they tell me that they're some kind of macro brand drinker, and I give them a double or triple IPA, or I don't know what you're drinking. It could be I don't know if it's a Vitis or one of our rum barrel or one of our barrel aged beers.
What I'm going for.
And so if it's they'll never drink a craft beer again because they'll associate it with that. So instead, we start them either with either our low calorie beer, our Freedom Tower, if it's an amber,
a good Pilsner, you get
or
a
a Pilsner, which is our Playita. So that's what we give them. And slowly educate them on the process.
But then you have someone like me who walks in and they're like, "Oh, what do you drink?" I'm like, "Everything."
Right.
You put a beer in front of me, I will taste it, I will drink it.
But then that's fine. But you're an experienced craft beer drinker. But we get a lot of people especially when we do events like Jose Luis says, or there's a larger event, or he takes his members from his master's class out. If he gives them a really, let's say he gives them our Alma Fuerte, which is, probably I think it is our number one cigar, but it's a little bit stronger cigar, more on a full body. No, he starts them out with a Plasencia Cigars original, explains that story and gives them the right size of it, right? Because even the size makes a difference. I'm smoking a little Nestico now. Sometimes this has a bigger punch for me personally. Maybe it's not the way, maybe I shouldn't even be saying that, but it does for me. Does it to you for that Robusto, right?
It actually makes sense because tobacco is more concentrated in shorter ring gauges and shorter cigars. So of course,
Really? I figured it would be the opposite, that bigger is more.
No, because smaller your tighter roll,
Exactly.
you're getting that much more of a punch to
all
it.
the components that the tobacco actually has is more concentrated there, so the kick is gonna be a little bit harder.
Can you please pretend that I'm not the only uneducated person in the room? Greatly
Man,
appreciated.
listen, we're proud that you have the best humidor of all of us in the room. So you have a great humidor. So
I will definitely thank you to New Air for my beautiful 250 cigar humidor.
Yeah.
New Air 250 cigar humidor.
And
I don't have
and-
250 cigars in it just yet.
and to me personally, I think what's great about cigars is to me it's a little of a romanticism. It's like a bottle of wine, man. The minute you uncork, and that's why I like uncorking still bottles of wine, even though maybe screw tops they say are better. The process starts there. For us, the process starts with your eyes looking at a cigar, right?
And like you said,
looking at the
with cigar
wrapper,
aficionado, they romanticize the cigar. It's usually a strong role model smoking a cigar. And not even smoking it, just holding it.
Yeah.
It makes everything.
And there's great, Cigar Aficionado. I think now Cigar Snob, which is a local publication here, Eric does a great job with that. It's all of education. Same thing with craft beer, right? Educating the consumer and the romanticism of what it is, right? It's like us sitting here, four guys at a cigar lounge. We happen to be holding mics and recording something, but we're really just sitting down and talking. There's almost, and we could talk forever, right? And he could, Jose Luis could then start smoking all the other brands, and he'll start telling you about all the different flavor profiles. Same thing as with beer, right? And we'll disagree, right? And you may think of a little bit more nutty. Oh, sorry, I keep holding the microphone away, but that's it's really a lot of fun, man.
We could sit here and talk cigars and beers and everything all day. All four of us have wives that would be very angry with us if we
that's
did
right.
that.
Yeah.
But I actually, you had mentioned something, and I kind of want to convert to that because it's a good question that I've been asking. So currently, I am drinking Debonair, which is an imperial stout that was aged in Pedro Jimenez sherry and Scotch whiskey barrels for over 2 years. And that brings to mind an interesting question is if you take a look at cigars, if you take a look at social media and cigars, even if you take a look at Cigar Snob, I just took a look at their Instagram account. The third picture in was Old Forester whiskey. When you look at cigars, when you take a look at these images, the traditional pairing, if it's in the morning, it's a cortadito or an espresso, which I completely understand. But in the afternoon and evening, it's a sherry, it's a whiskey, it's a bourbon, it's a scotch. Why beer? Why did you decide that the tank was going to be a brewery, and why did you pair beer with cigars? Going into how do you pair beer with cigars?
Yeah, I'll tell you the reason we did that is because we had, the consumer base, right? So we have a 25. The craft beer industry generally is known as a 25 to 40-year-old consumer base, right? If you talk about the cigar industry overall, you generally picture a cigar smoker as being an older guy, a professional who's going, right? And so for us, it was a little bit of a risk, but it's our way of marketing our cigar world, not only our brands, but everybody else's brand. As you see in our shop, we carry everybody else's brand of other people. And what we want to do is educate them. So when we do tours of the brewery, we ended up in the cigar shop, and then we explain the whole, and we think there's the artisanal part of making a beer is very similar to the artisanal part of making a cigar. So if we do a tasting, or if we do a tour of any of our, our couriers, whether it's a Miller Ale House, whether it's the folks at Barracudas, or, even at a restaurant, Garcia's, Duffy's, whatever it is, we bring them through here, and we bring the bartenders, and we bring the managers, and then we talk to them about cigars. Do we get everybody to try a cigar? Absolutely not. It's a lot easier to get somebody to try a beer. Won't lie about it. But we do. We get some to do it. And then at the very least, what they'll do is they'll understand that this is a lifestyle. And so from an investment perspective, in addition to the fact that, as you know, that beer is a very young still is in Miami, right? This is what we wanted to do, right? This is our way of mixing our both worlds together, right? This is why we serve our flights. We serve them in a cigar box. We have coasters made out of cedar to educate why cedar, because that's ideally the perfect way to light a cigar, right? And so that's what we did to try to continue our way of marketing, right? Our limited way of marketing our product. And beers pair, the kind of beers that are being developed nowadays, they start pairing very well, especially in the South Florida climate with cigars.
How would you start with the limited knowledge of cigars that apparently I have? How would you start to pair a proper beer with a proper cigar? What would you look for? What would you try to connect with?
It's a hard question, to be honest. It's so broad. It's so broad. It depends on, like, for instance, you're starting to smoke, right? Like, I cannot give you, like I was telling before, I cannot give you a very, very strong cigar that would go that would pair good with a scotch or a bourbon or whatever, right? Like, in my personal opinion, for instance, I'm a beer drinker. I've always been a beer drinker.
That's why we like them.
Yeah. But I was raised all my life in Nicaragua, and I would drink the regular commercial beers over there, but they didn't pair well with a cigar. They paired well with a cigarette. I was a cigarette smoker before, and they would go very well with a cigarette. I don't know what it has, but a craft beer goes so good with a cigar that when I first tried a craft beer, oh my God, this is the perfect combo,
With the craft beers, you fall into the layers of flavor. Whereas a cigar, you also get those flavors.
Exactly.
You can get a lot of this very similar flavors to it, to where they work very well together.
Exactly.
Which of our beers, I've never asked you, which of our beers do you smoke a cigar with? The Freedom Tower?
The Padron, of course.
Freedom Tower,
goes
yeah,
very
with the
good.
Amber, yeah.
Padron.
Yeah, Padron. Well, that one just came out now, right? But Freedom Tower.
Freedom Tower goes well, and I
with
like
which cigar do you usually pair it with?
Freedom Tower, I like it with Alma Fuerte or with an Alma del Fuego. It's a bolder smoke, a little bit more flavorful. But for instance, like the Reserva Original, the one that I'm smoking now, goes very good with La Playita. I love it. How those.
And I've always leaned more towards a good, heavy Churchill-sized cigar and a good stout.
Right.
Because stouts, as they warm up, they get better.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Try this thing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. He's not driving, is he?
No.
No, good.
No, I'm good.
All right.
Uh,
Because that has a high ABV, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. You're not driving.
You're all right, Dave. You'll be fine.
I'm seeing colors right now. A joke, of course. Don't drink and drive.
But the elephant is different.
So Plasencia is sitting on, since 1865, you've got a history in triple digits. Cigar rolling, cigar manufacturing, tobacco growing is obviously much older than that. I kind of want to talk about the old and the new when it comes to the cigar industry, especially with Plasencia. And I think you know where you're going with the new stuff. But with the old, how much has really changed? Do you still roll the traditional ways? Do you still, in some ways, this notwithstanding, do you still grow in the traditional ways? Do you still harvest in the traditional ways? How much of the cigar industry, how much of Plasencia is honoring and replicating the way things always have been?
It doesn't change that much, to be honest. Like what we love this industry for many different things, but one of the things that we love the most is of this industry is that everything is done completely by hand. Since the moment I put the seed on the soil until the cigar is made, everything is like more than 200 pair of hands are involved in the whole process, and more than 500 different steps are involved since the moment I put the seed on the soil until I have the cigar. That's amazing when you actually sit down and try to analyze that part. That's actually amazing.
If I'm not mistaken, too, when you go to just to harvest the tobacco, you can't use machines on it. You have to do it by hand because the leaf is very delicate.
If you spoil leaf, it wouldn't it would work, but you want to be as neat as possible, So it hasn't changed that much, to be honest. Like what we're saying, the drip irrigation system, a little bit like the new traditional way of growing tobacco, but that doesn't change that much. Like the fact that you harvest it by hand, then you hand them by hand in curing barns. That is when the tobacco changes colors from green to yellowish to brown. Then you put them in the fermentation process. You do everything by hand. Then it goes to aging. You prepare the bales by hand. And it goes to manufacturing part, and everything is done completely by hand. So it hasn't changed that much.
We have come up, the family came up, his brother, I think, was the guy who led it, though. Sometimes you change the shape or the size of a cigar, right? And that affects it. But
exactly.
and we just came up, if you don't mind telling them, because I don't know how the whole
For
hexagon
instance,
shape.
we have the first and only hexagonal cigar in the market. It's a hexagon shape. It's 6-shaped cigar.
Yeah, because I've seen obviously circular. A tube is the most common.
Exactly.
I've seen some box cigars that are perfectly square.
So my brother is an agronomist.
Here you go for your humidor.
And he's pretty involved into nature, sustainable stuff, and everything. So by reading, he found out that the perfect shape of nature is the hexagon. Like, I don't know, Carlos, you can help me out here. Un panal de abejas. How do you?
Steve, we're not going to leave you. We're not going to leave you out. Dave got one for his humidor, and so what we handed them is called the
hexagon.
Yeah, but that's the Connecticut shade, right? That we just.
No, it's not. It's Habano shade.
Habano shade. Okay.
But it comes from the lower part of the plants, which are a little bit lighter than the top part of the plant.
So you were talking about a beehive, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, like panal de abejas. How do you call that?
That's a beehive.
So that's where we got our inspiration from. So that's supposed to be called the perfect shape of nature. So my brother came and did a lot of trial and error because making that cigar is not easy. You need to make actually an hexagonal mold and keep that cigar for 6 months, aging and pressing it, and you press it along with the band, so the band would acquire that hexagonal shape as well. And most importantly, like regular standard of production is age the cigar once it's made for 2 weeks to 1 month. But with this process, we're given 6 months of aging of the cigar once it's actually made. So, like as any other spirits out there, the more you age, the more you prepare it, the better quality it's gonna be. So
yeah, because prior to this, it was basically a round shape product, different sizes. There was a box press, and now, I mean, I think we're still the only ones that are making this type. And so again, it's just trying. It's trying different things, right? And that's what we like to try to do the same thing as we talked about with the beer industry, always trying to be a little bit innovative and trying to get people to, learn a little bit more about our story, in the marketing. Again, unfortunately, a lot of this innovation is trying to be curtailed because of government regulations and what we could do, and the grandfathered in clauses of that the FDA is trying to. So it kind of hurts us a little bit, but hopefully, as people get educated, they'll realize that this is an artisanal product marketed towards adults. It's a lifestyle, and we're really not that bad.
And obviously, the new continues. The one cigar that you gave us, when we first started, which was absolutely amazing, is organic.
Yes, it's 100% organic cigar.
And Plasencia was the first. Are you still the only?
We're still the only ones.
So I guess
in the premium sector. Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess how did that project even get started? As you've got this industry and you've been growing tobacco for generations and generations, and all of a sudden, organic comes up.
Yeah, it's my brother's baby, to be honest. My brother, when he graduated from agricultural school, he came out with the idea, but it wasn't easy. It took like 4 to 5 years to actually come with an actual 100% certified product, because he tried many different things, in order to come up with. And we're certified by OSHA, or OSHA is Organic Crop Improvement Association. These people go every year to our fields to inspect that if we're doing organic practices properly, and they are constantly giving us the organic certification. So what makes it organic? So tobacco, as any other regular product, you use fertilizers and chemicals for it to grow, and the fertilizers themselves are chemicals, are formulas based on nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, which has actual chemicals. And you sprayed it to prevent the pests to attacks and everything. You sprayed it with a lot of different chemicals as well, like any other crop. But what we do different here, for instance, we produce our own organic fertilizer that is based on earthworms' excrement. We feed the earthworms with organic materials, and the excrement is what we use as organic fertilizer. To prevent the pests to attack, we use extract of garlic, which is 100% organic, right? The pests do not like the garlic smell, and they would go away. They wouldn't attack the tobacco plant. And also, in our organic fields, we plant sunflowers throughout the fields. So the insects, instead of going to the tobacco plant, they will go to the sunflower because they're attracted to it. So that's how we produce our organic cigar, and we receive the certificate.
So essentially, you're having nature work against itself.
Exactly. That's the way. We like to call it that this cigar was the one that Christopher Columbus first smoked when he came to the Americas, right? There were no chemicals in anything back then.
And overall, I mean, the tobacco plant is considered natural, right? And for the most part, it is, right? So it's just different. Again, it's just it's being able to explain, and I think what we use that fertilizer that he was indicating that it's created through the worms. We use it in all of our tobaccos as well, right? Not only for this one, and we found it to be very, very useful. And not only was it difficult, by the way, not only was it difficult to grow it to this stage, it was difficult for us to tell Nestor Jr., because when he started this, it's like, come on, stop it. You just came out of school, leave us alone, right? His father, right? The boom had just kind of ended and he wants to do all these things. And, but it's a beauty of his dad as an individual who's, again, an amazing individual as well, right? Very bright. He said, if you believe in something and if you have a passion on it, he lets us go with it, right? And so he lets us do a lot of stuff that we want to try. He just holds our feet to the fire. We better be able to make it work, right? I mean, and if we fail, it's okay, but he gives us the leeway to do it as a business.
And coming back to sustainability, right? When we started developing this organic fertilizer that I just talked to you about, we started incorporating that to the soil, because tobacco is a product, it's a crop that grows very fast. So that makes the soil lose a lot of nutrients. So every year we would do soil analysis, and we were looking that the soil was losing a lot of nutrients, and then year by year the yield of production of the crops was actually declining. But then we started to put this organic fertilizer in the soil, and we found out that it put back nutrients into the soil. So we were doing the analysis, and we would see how important it was to take good care of your soil, because eventually you will have better yields, you have better tobacco, and eventually better cigars.
Is this going to be something that is going to be spread to all of the farms and all of
Yeah,
the...
that's our goal. That's our goal. Every year we are constantly growing our production of this organic fertilizer.
But are other people implementing this in some of the other farms? Yeah.
Yes. Other people have started to implement that. Because what I said, we want the people that are growing tobacco there to start developing these sustainable practices, because it would not make a difference at all if we are the only ones doing it, We want all of them to do it, so that's what's going to help us to continue growing tobacco for many, many years.
Yeah, we got to protect our resources, just like the forest that you guys planted, right? The small little forest that they planted. What was that all about?
Well, again, my brother again. There's I wouldn't be able to explain it in detail, but it's some different technique of growing. That a forest that it will last 100 years to grow, it grows in 10 years with a special technique. So a guy from Israel that my brother watched him on TED Talk actually. He managed a way to contact him and stuff and everything. So he went to Nicaragua and he actually helped us to build that forest. But it actually was amazing because in 1 year, all those different species of trees had grown 10 times bigger than traditional growing process. So that's another initiative that we're doing as well.
It's kind of amazing, and hopefully Plasencia will grow as fast, if not faster, and continue to thrive as well as the forest. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Dave, as always, for supporting the tank. And thank you for getting into the cigar world and learning a little bit about it, because, you're part of the educational process, not only in the beer world, but you've done an amazing job, but hopefully, you'll spread the word as to the cigar industry as well.
I'm definitely going to educate myself on more of the cigars behind me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is producer Jemmy, founder of the Florida Podcast Network, here to thank our partner, Mainline Marketing. Great equipment can make the difference between an ordinary podcasting experience and one that is immersive and inspiring. The sound quality produced with the Shure MV7 podcasting microphone is simply far superior to other options on the market. The voice isolation technology will help you sound great, even when you're not in an expensive studio. But not only is the sound quality simply unreal, but the Shure MV7 podcasting mic is very easy to use with 2 output options. So whether your show format and setup call for you to plug your microphone into the USB port right on your computer or to use it with an XLR cable into your mixer, you'll find the setup is easy. The Shure MV7 sound quality is top-notch, and it's easy to use, versatile, and also looks really great for your social media shots. So thank you again to Mainline Marketing. Having won over 40 various achievement awards, Mainline Marketing has been the go-to audiovisual manufacturers industry rep since 1987. They can be trusted to bring you the best. Visit mainlinemarketing.com today and partner with them. And be sure once again to check out the MV7 podcasting microphone from Shure by going to shure.com. That's SHURE.com. Shure, turning a passion for making great microphones into an obsession.
And that is it for our interview with Plasencia Cigars. Absolutely great time. We do appreciate the hospitality and the warmth that Carlos and Jose Luis were able to show us. Definitely one of my favorite places in Miami-Dade County. If you head down to Doral, make sure to stop at the Family Cigar Store, easily located in the Tank Brewing. You can have a beer, you can have a cigar, you can have some food, all of which is absolutely wonderful. Check back with us next week. We're going to continue our Miami-Dade trip with a stop in to another one of my favorite breweries in the area, Beat Culture, out by the airport. And trust me, we got a lot of interesting things to talk about. The Florida Beer Podcast is a production of FloridaBeerBlog.com. You can find us at FloridaBeerBlog.com, FloridaBeerPodcast.com. We're on social media at Florida Beer Blog on Instagram and Twitter. We're at FL Beer Blog on Facebook, or you can write us directly at FloridaBeerBlog@gmail.com. The Florida Beer Podcast is also a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network. And if you're interested, you can take a look at our closed Facebook group exclusively for superfans of all the shows on the network. All you have to do is search for FPN Insiders on Facebook to join our group, leave comments, tell us the latest brewery that you visited, get early scoops on new news, and we have a lot of great shows coming to the network and more. So you can find us at FloridaPodcastNetwork.com or search FPN Insiders on Facebook. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer is Steve Pekala. Executive producer and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate us, subscribe to us, leave a review on the podcasting app of your choice. It helps others find this podcast, and tell everyone you know. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening, and drink Florida Craft.